Hey everybody, this is Jacob. I'm back here with Robert. This is the VP of Training Operations for the Motorcycle Safety Foundation. And today we were talking all about MSF. So Robert, welcome to the podcast. Appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks, Jacob. It's good to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, we got a lot of stuff to dive into. We were kind of talking a little bit before about how this relates to the dealership. But I wanted to kind of just start with the whole MSF program, right? Can you tell us a little bit about, just in a nutshell for the average listener, what is the MSF, what does it do, and how does it help out in this industry?
So the Motorcycle Safety Foundation is a not-for-profit organization. We were founded in 1973. Several members at the time of the Motorcycle Industry Council were looking at sales and figuring out that bikes were going out the door at a pretty fast rate. And they wanted to educate the riders so that they could be safer out on the road. And so they decided they would spin off another organization, that is the MSF, and task the MSF with teaching people how to ride and teaching people how to stay safer out on the road through rider education and training programs. And so that's what we've been doing since 1973. I mean, we started in 72, first classes were in 73. We actually have people still involved in rider education who were there in those days. So it's one of those things that kind of gets in your blood. And so we have about 250,000 to 300,000 students a year, depending on the year, who go through our rider courses in the U.S. And then the U.S. military also uses our level 1 and level 2 courses, our basic rider course and our basic rider course 2, and recognizes those for DoD requirements for personnel. And so we're the people that try and get the prospective motorcyclists, get them trained, help them be safe, make sure they get licensed, and then they can go on to become a lifelong motorcyclist if that's their desire.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. 250 to 300,000 students every year. And yes, you have multiple training centers in each state. Let's just kind of start with that. If I was a first-time rider just getting into the industry, I saw a motorcycle go by, I think it's pretty cool, I might want to get one day. How would I, as a new rider, start with the MSF?
The Motorcycle Safety Foundation curriculum is offered in almost every case through a state program. So we work with 47 different states because almost every state in the country has a state rider education program or a motorcycle safety program that rider education is a component of that. There's also things like motorist awareness, where you'll see the changeable message signs and the bumper stickers come May every year, things like that. And so they have chosen to use MSF curriculum for their Learn to Ride. And then depending on the state, it might be that it's through the community college system. It might be a bunch of small businesses. It might be through the state itself running it centrally located. And then you have other opportunities for training like the Harley-Davidson Riding Academy, which uses MSF curriculum. And then Can-Am has their 3-wheel program with using our 3-wheel basic rider course. So the first stop for a lot of people is to go to our website at msf-usa.org. Right on that landing page, there's a place you can plug in your zip code and you can find a training site within 50 or 100, 150 miles of you. And so you can get a variety of them out there and see which one has a class that fits your schedule and that type of stuff. They'll usually have a list of the course offerings and the things you need to bring to the class. So first stop, hit our website, msf-usa.org, use the zip code finder, find a class near you, and find one that fits your schedule.
Okay, cool. Yeah. When I started down this journey, I went through a local training center called TAM, Arizona.
Yep.
And I got my MSF certification, got my endorsement on my license here in Arizona. Wonderful class. I know they're probably a little different state to state, but what is the average cost for an MSF course for a first-time rider?
It depends on the state. In some states, Pennsylvania, for example, if you're a resident of Pennsylvania, it's free because revenue collected from motorcycle registrations and motorcycle operator license fees funds the program. In other states, it might be a $50 deposit, and you can get a refund on that after you complete the class if you choose. But in most states, you're going to pay around $250 to $350, depending on the state. Obviously, a class in Nebraska or Iowa is probably going to be less expensive than a class in Manhattan or Long Island. So that's another thing you could look for is if it's a free market situation in your state, you're going to see different rates for the same class around your area. So you can always look for a good deal on that.
That's great. That's great. And they take the curriculum from the MSF and apply it to maybe some of their own state regulated riding training. I don't know what would be different from state to state, but I imagine that there are 1-day courses, 3-day courses, maybe even 5-day courses. Is that correct?
Yeah, most of the providers use our basic rider course, and the most popular version of that that's out there right now is what we refer to as our AP 1x11. So break that down a little bit. You've got online training. You've got 5 hours online where you're going to go through. It's going to give you your basics of motorcycle control layout, the difference in helmet styles, the difference between fashion leather, function leather, and then you're going to get into things where you're looking at what kind of helmet do I want to be and what do I want to wear, but then also getting into the human factors. So when you're out on the road, staying calm, making sure you're in the right mindset, things like that. Once you've gone through that, that sets you up for the 11 hours you're going to be hands-on on the range with the rider coaches teaching you how to ride. And so that part is where you really get the handlebars in your hands and it really comes to life. We also have our basic rider course too, which is more for experienced riders who need to get a license. And in that case, you're going to have about 3 to 5 hours online, depending on the version your state approves, and then about 6 or 7 hours hands-on on the range. The difference is on your own motorcycle. The idea is maybe somebody's been on a permit for a long time, or they've got a bike, or they're returning to riding, and they need to get licensed. That course really fits them well. And then we have a basic rider course for 3-wheel operators, so trikes, spiders, Rikers, vehicles like that. We have an advanced rider course, which is not a licensing course, but that one is almost like a track day in a smaller lot. So you get a lot of experience in cornering, aggressive braking, things like that, sequential cornering. And then from there you can go on and on. We've got our circuit rider course, which is much larger. It's about a 3 times the normal size range. And that one you're getting up into highway speeds, things like that. We have our adventure bike course for people on adventure bikes, so we can get them out of the coffee shop parking lot and out on the trails, because a lot of those people, they may know how to ride, but this will be the first time they've stood up on a motorcycle. And so we want to teach them how. And then for whole families, we've got our dirt bike school. So our dirt bike school is a 1-day on a flat dirt lot. Students as young as 6 years old can come to this. So it's really great for families. It's really great for small groups. And it's a great way for dealerships to tie in and say, all right, we've got this family that keeps coming in, kicking the tires on these trail bikes. Where's my local MSF dirt bike school? Partner with them, get them into a class, and then you're going to make lifelong riders out of them, hopefully.
That's so awesome.
You cover variety classes. Kind of what do people need? We try to make a class for everything.
That sounds great. I mean, you literally cover the entire field of the different types of motorcycle segments out there, off-road, on-road, everything. Let's tie that back into the dealership now. So clearly you have a very important role with minting new riders. That's what I would see as a dealership advocate as the most important thing that you guys do, right? We have a very small industry. It's very niche. I think the last time I read a statistic on it, it was 3 to 4% of the US population is a registered motorcycle owner. So the question is always, how do we get more people into the sport, into the industry? And I see you guys at the forefront of that, making sure that these new riders have the tools and equipment and knowledge, to get out there on the roads on these motorcycles that the dealerships sell them. I mean, can you kind of tell me about the core riding training pipeline and how it helps dealers connect these brand new riders once they complete a course to the dealership?
I think it's really important that every dealership, whether multi-line franchise or a small used shop, you should have a relationship with your local MSF training site. Because when you get people that come in and they're just not sure how to get started, the best first ride is in an MSF basic rider course. And they can go in and they can learn how to ride. They can get some confidence. They can get licensed. And it's really important because trained, untrained, and unlicensed riders are overrepresented in crash data. So you want to get these people the best possible start you can. There's also, if the people are in the class and they want to know, hey, where can I go look at some bikes? Then it's kind of a symbiotic relationship back and forth. So there's resources back and forth. All training sites are always looking for training motorcycles. The bikes, they take a little bit of a beating with a bunch of brand new riders on them every weekend. Levers and handlebars are kind of sacrificial. So, a place that they can get a good price on things like levers and foot pegs, and then reciprocate by maybe there's some decals for the dealership or the store that can go on the training bikes, things like that. So there should be a good relationship between the two because it's mutually beneficial to have a place where you can send interested people, and where interested people can go look at bikes and potentially buy a bike, buy a helmet, buy a jacket, buy gloves, get all the important safety gear that goes along with riding. But one of the bigger initiatives we've got that we unveiled a few years ago, and we're heading towards a big national version of it this summer, last weekend in May, is called Ride Day. And it's where we go to an MSF training site and just for a taste. And so we will promote it to a local area. We'll have the training bikes out there, the helmets, the rider coaches, and people can come out and just, it's not a full class. It might only be 20 minutes, but they're going to get geared up. They're going to get out there. A rider coach is going to explain to them where the controls are, help them get the bike started, help them get it into gear, and they just get them at walking speed going around. And I'll tell you what, it really charges my batteries and my role here to go out and watch one of these, because these people come off of the bike and they're floating. You know, they have tears in their eyes. They're just like, this is amazing. And also some people come out and go, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. And that's fine, because that's their decision. They've made that decision. They'll defend it. But the vast majority of them, they do go on from there. They sign up for a class. Some of those people go on and get a license. Some of those people go on and buy a motorcycle. So it's the first time MSF has had a program where we can put a through line through getting that first taste of motorcycling for the person, to them becoming a motorcyclist, but coming in through the right way. And that is through rider education training, getting the education, buying the gear, becoming licensed, and entering our great pastime, our great sport, however you want to look at it, properly in a way that's going to minimize the risk as long as they follow what they've learned. And so our ride day, we will have 150 people show up on a Sunday morning somewhere just to try it. And some of them drive an hour to get there. So it shows there's a real thirst for this opportunity. $0, come in, try it out, and then partnerships with dealerships where they can have somebody there to maybe help them fit a helmet. Maybe they pay for the catering truck, things like that, help pitch in for the insurance. There's partnerships there where it's mutually beneficial. What we don't necessarily want to see in those ones is if they come off the bike, you don't necessarily want to have a salesperson standing right there say, hey, let's get you into this new model. But be there as a resource. There's a huge store on the East Coast, and what they do is about a week after these ride days go on, they just call the people up and they say, hey, Jacob, saw you out there Saturday, looked like you're having a lot of fun. Just want you to know we're here. If you got any questions, call us anytime, come on down, hit us up with anything you got. So they're starting that relationship that's so important, because so many dealerships, they need to get, new people in the pipeline. They want return sales, things like that. A way to start that relationship is by partnering with an MSF training site on one of our ride days.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that was going to be my next question is, after somebody graduates, what kind of successful models where the dealers can provide incentives or special offers, or like you said, they somehow get the contact info and just reach out to them and congratulate them. What have you seen working in the past when it comes to the new riders now ready in the bicycle?
A lot of it is just making sure they know where to go. Just on the training side, one of the places we did a ride day in Colorado is near a freeway, and people drive, thousands of people drive by every day. People showed up for the ride day and they made these offhand comments like, I've driven past here 1,000 times and I've always seen motorcycles out here, but I didn't know what was happening. So they didn't know that rider education was right there waiting for them. And then next door to that site is a dealership. And so there's a natural partnership there. It's also making sure that, when people come in, they're looking at the right size bike for a beginner. And that can be a big part of where the rider education training comes in, because we'll talk about the different styles of bikes and why a smaller bike is a good place to start. So maybe they come into a dealership, they're a little more educated, they're a little more ready to have a deeper conversation than just to walk around and kick some tires.
That's great, man. That's great. It sounds like the ride day is going to be a huge thing. You said that's a national event. What's the specific date on that?
So we've been doing these for a couple of years in targeted markets where we can really just, isolate and focus with the social media content, things like that. May 29, 30, and 31 of this year. So right at the end of May Motorcycle Awareness Month is going to be MSF National Ride Day. We're referring to it as Super Ride Day. We're targeting having 50 to 60 locations at least across the country do this. We have a number of providers who have done them in the past. They were some of the first to sign up. We have some state programs that are going to throw some resources at it because they want to get, maybe 8 or 10 locations in their state to do this, because they've seen the success of having a ride day and getting people into classes. And that's what these state programs are for, is to help people get into a class, get the rider education training they need so they can mitigate risk as best they can on the road.
That's great.
So May 29, 30, and 31, mark your calendar now.
Mark the calendar now, yeah, and get with your local MSF if you don't already have the relationship.
Yeah, there's a lot more information about that on our website. If you go to our website and you look for Ride Day, you'll find it in there. And then the other thing that a lot of dealerships should be aware of is many of the manufacturers have rewards. If you take an MSF course, there's a discount on the vehicle, or maybe there's a discount on a helmet or a jacket, things like that. And we have a whole section on the MSF website called Rider Course Rewards. And it's good to be familiar with that because almost every one of our member companies has some kind of incentive to complete a rider course. And so if you're a dealership and you have 1 or 2 or 3 lines that you carry, it'd be good to know what the incentives are from the manufacturer or the importer for students that complete an MSF course, because that could be part of your conversation with them.
Yeah, wow. Okay, I didn't even know that. Which manufacturers have incentives available for the customer if they graduate an MSF course?
Right now, you're looking at BMW does, Can-Am, harley-davidson, Honda, Kawasaki, Suzuki, and Yamaha all do. And then we're always looking at other opportunities to spread the word. And then a lot of places, Cycle Gear, for example, has, if you show your MSF basic rider course completion card, they'll have discounts. And there's nothing stopping any dealer from saying, hey, show us your completion card and, we'll give you a sticker or we'll give you 100% off. It's their choice. What do they want to offer? But incentivize that training. Make sure people are getting out there and getting safe and getting the best start.
That's great, man. I had no idea that the OEMs were offering this as a rebate or incentive towards another motorcycle. Talking about that, with the relationships that you've built, and obviously you've got a large data set that you guys are sitting on with these new riders, how does the MSF equip dealers with those insights about their local rider populations so the dealers can kind of anticipate the future demand?
The data management is a tricky situation. Obviously, data security is very important. In most cases, the state agency that is conducting the training or offering the training, technically that data is theirs. So they may or may not make it available for commercial use. That's where the relationship comes back into the local training provider, because if their customers are coming to them, then they may have other options that they can partner with the dealership on how to use that information. We've started to reach out to people after they take a class and just not trying to sell them anything necessarily, but to make sure they're aware of other training. When we're also looking at things like spring training in places where you have to put the bike away and winterize it before you get back on the road come March, April, May. Hey, little reminder in your inbox that you may want to think about doing a skills check. You may want to come out and do a basic rider course too, and just kind of get your head back in the game before you get out on the road. So we're looking at partnering with people that way. But the use of the data is a very delicate situation. That's no small part of our job every day, is making sure that any restrictions imposed by states on the student information is honored and respected and adhered to. But wherever possible, we're trying to make people aware of other training opportunities that are available to them.
Yeah, that's great. And a wonderful point on the winter season, right? Some of our northern states, they literally get rusty until the snow melts, right? And they have not thrown a leg over a bike in 3, 4, 5 months in some areas. And getting back out there to get a refresher is not a terrible idea. Let's talk about demo rides real quick. So in season, a lot of the dealers like to offer demo rides, whether it be through an internal program with their used bikes or through an OEM manufacturer that's on a tour. Yamaha does this a lot. Indian does this a lot. Is there a way that the MSF and the dealers can collaborate on some of these, advanced skills courses, or with the OEMs that might build that rider confidence at the dealership doing the demo ride?
Where I've seen MSF rider coaches have a good role in demo rides is being pilot and chase riders, because they've been trained through a nearly 60-hour course on how to teach people to ride. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of experience on kind of reading riders and seeing what their skill level is and how confident are they, how competent are they pretty quickly. And so there's a number of the manufacturers and distributors, and there's a number of dealerships that will frequently reach out to the local MSF site and say, hey, can we, borrow a couple of your rider coaches, hire a couple of rider coaches, because we want to have a pilot and a chase for maybe 2 different groups going on, things like that. And then they can also introduce those people to that MSF course. So maybe, and I think we've seen this happen, somebody shows up for a demo ride thinking it's when you learn to ride. No, right. It's not. So then it's, okay, well, turn around and say, hey, we got this person here from the local training site. They can give you information on a class, learn how to ride. Let's get some time, under your belt, and then come back and do one of these demo rides and try out some of these great new bikes. So that's a really good role for them there. It's just part of that back and forth relationship between the local MSF training site, the rider coaches that are there, and the dealer.
And these coaches get paid while they're being pilot and chase riders for the group, right? I mean, so they're out there making a couple bucks, doing something that they love and they're clearly good at, right? With training people or kind of guiding them through the demo process.
Well, they usually get to ride a brand new bike too, and who doesn't like that?
And you get to ride a brand new bike. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. In your experience, I mean, what's another tactical thing that dealerships could start doing immediately to make sure that these MSF newly minted riders are still walking through their doors? You mentioned a couple incentive packages or working with them on some collaborative events or other things going on. The demo rides is a great way, but like what really works with dealers, making sure that they are in front of and on top of mind of these new graduates?
It's a lot of it comes back to supporting the local training site. So it's, kind of like you go to a Little League game and you got the pizza place banner and you got, all these local businesses right there. Go down there and say, hey, we're from, Jane's Honda. Can we put a banner up over here? And can we give you some materials to hand out? Now, sometimes the state's law restrictions on what you can distribute, but that doesn't mean you can't put them on a table and make them available for people. And then also just having, maybe product pushers, things like that, just out there so you can kind of start that relationship, get it going. We do get a number of people that at the end of the class, they're pretty spent. It's been a long time for them. So for them to be able to take some information, they go home, maybe start dreaming about that new bike, things like that, making sure it's available and having it out there in a passive manner is what you can do in most state programs and in most ways. And that's just part of it. And then what does the training provider need? Do they need maybe some better bikes? Most of the manufacturers have some sort of an incentive to put bikes into the training programs, either deferred flooring or billing or a discount. So rather than having people on 10-year-old bikes that are pretty beat up, can the dealership work with them to put some brand new product on the range? So these people are on 250s and 300s and appropriate training size bikes that are new and represent really what's in the market now. Because years and years ago, there was a research project done and it showed that people would love to buy the bike they learned on. There's a familiarity there. And so if you start off on a certain model of bike and you go, wow, this thing's really cool and I've had this great time. Wouldn't it be neat if they knew exactly where to go sit on that new bike in the dealership? Because who doesn't love walking into a dealership? I mean, they've got that aroma, and anybody who's been in one knows what I'm talking about. You get the tires and the helmets and all that new stuff. Don't you want them to come in there and kind of get that, like, let's go. This is really neat. I want to be a part of this. And hey, that's the bike I learned to ride on. How much is that thing? So, how can we tie those two together, give them a good start, and then get that relationship, into our tribe as motorcyclists?
Yeah. A lot of dealerships too also offer gear and maintenance for these motorcycles as a package. Could they possibly work with the MSF to, in their local MSF to allow the messaging to say, hey, you also get gear discounts. You mentioned cycle gear. You got the rebates, you got the incentives, and just making sure that awareness is out there for those participants.
Yeah, it's whatever they want to work out. And also keep in mind, these training motorcycles need a lot of maintenance. They need a lot of repairs. They're pretty sacrificial. And so a good way to do that, with the training provider, is to help them keep the bikes in good shape so that whatever brand or model of bike they are, they represent that brand well. And so levers, side stands, things like that, shift levers, they take a real beating on the training bikes. And so helping keep the bikes good by maybe working with the training provider on their service rate and their parts rate and things like that. We have in our New Mexico program, RNS out there, we have a great relationship with them. They take good care of us. And I know that every student who goes through one of our classes in New Mexico, the levers are straight and fresh and clean on those bikes because RNS really helps us out, And so that's a good example of where you've got a store or multiple who are putting back into the program because they see that riders who go through the program that are going to be safer, safe riders, maybe a return customer, a lifelong customer. So help us out by getting these people the best start possible.
Well, let's talk about them, right? Everybody wants a new rider to the industry. We need those numbers and those ranks to grow, of course, but we have a pretty sizable audience of experienced riders, and maybe they're looking to level up in motorcycle or skills challenge of some sort. Do you ever see dealerships working in a program with their local MSF to offer that as a package to their customers? Like, hey, the big BMW, right? The K1300, this bike, we'll also have an advanced rider course available for you with the purchase, and we just take care of it for you. You go and take the course.
Yeah, I've heard of that with dirt bikes at the dirt bike school being packaged. Riding clubs like BMW MOA, hog chapters, Goldwing groups, things like that. Sometimes they'll make a club activity out of going and taking a basic rider course too, or taking an advanced rider course. And so where a dealership could step in and say, all right, stop by here for coffee and donuts before you guys go. And after you come back, we got some sandwiches for you. Or maybe they pitch in and cover some of the tuition and make it kind of an activity that starts and ends at the dealership. So I think there's some opportunity there just to make, dealerships should be a destination for riders. So give them one more reason to come in, and that is partner with them on some of these training activities. Many opportunities around the country in most programs for if dealerships want to contribute towards the tuition, either a basic rider course 2, something like that. And like you said, include it with a motorcycle. That's a great idea. I think you see that in some dealerships already with some of the branded training that's out there where it's like, hey, let's get you the best possible start on this bike. Let's have you take the class.
I think it really shows that the dealership cares that, hey, we're earning your sale here, but we also want you to be an experienced rider that is going to be able to handle this brand new, bigger, faster, bike that you're getting. Have you seen any other success stories where the MSF programs directly increased the dealership's customer base at some of these events or other incentives? And what could other dealers learn from that?
I've heard of a few locations where they offer the advanced rider course, which is a pretty aggressive class. And the coaches a dealership will provide the coaches with newer model motorcycles to ride the demonstrations on. And then afterwards, when the class is over and complete, if the dealership chooses to, on that range, as long as waivers are signed and insurance is in place, they will let the students then try the bikes out on the closed course. So it's a little less risky than just turning them loose on the road. But it's also, if you think about it from the standpoint of these people are taking a class to learn how to be a better rider, they're looking at the rider coaches who we know are influential to the students. And the rider coaches are on these brand new motorcycles that maybe is something that's aspirational for them. So the dealership can kind of put them out there into that environment and let people see what they look like and how they sound and how they ride.
Yeah. Let's say they bought the bike already. Are they able to bring in that new big motorcycle to this advanced skills training?
Yeah. Our advanced rider course is for any bike. It started off as the military sport bike rider course, which we developed in 2008 and released in 2008, which is geared towards sport bikes. But the civilian version that we all use now, any bike can come in that thing. You could be on a Grom or you could be on a giant 1600 and you're going to learn something. That's pretty much guaranteed. So that would be a fantastic way to partnership is find that local site near you, work up an advanced rider course, put it out there a few weeks out and say, anybody who buys a bike over the next couple of weeks, we're going to, cover your tuition into this course. And then maybe they put the bike out there under the rider coach while they're teaching it. And that really kind of closes the circle there on creating that relationship, getting some people into training. Because a lot of the time people who are buying bigger bikes or moving up a few times, it may have been a while since they've been in a rider course, and old dogs can learn new tricks. It's time to get back into that class and get a reminder under the guidance of a rider coach.
I love that. Let's talk about the other side of the spectrum now, the rise of e-bikes. We see them all over our roads now. Usually it's a lot of younger kids that are popping wheelies out on the street, and these things aren't licensed, right? So there's a big, almost anarchy type of feel like, hey, things are just happening, and a lot of city ordinances are changing and they're kind of starting to crack down on that stuff. But in terms of the e-bike popularity now, whether you like it or not, they're here. How does the MSF and maybe even the dealerships partner together to ensure those newer segments are also being nurtured?
Well, I think it's important to differentiate between e-motos, which don't have pedals. And that's the ones you see that are pretty darn capable on two wheels, electric motor, but there's no pedals. We have partnered over the last few years with People for Bikes, which is a major organization within the bicycle industry. And about a year ago, we soft released, and then in the fall, we really started pushing our new e-bike safety course at ebikecourse.com. And it's about a 70 to 90 minute online course. It's geared really towards kind of middle school, high school kids who are on class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes. And so we're looking at people who maybe have not been in driver's ed yet. So street signs, rules of the road, hand signals, four-way intersection etiquette, things like that, lane positioning, they have not learned anything about that. And to your point, you see them, they're doing a stand-up wheelie through a stop sign in front of you today. I see it all the time. And so we wanted to get into that market because where you see a lot of schools going is they're either prohibiting them outright, and some municipalities are doing that at certain ages, maybe 12 and under, or they're saying you have to take a class. Well, what class? Here where I'm located in California, there's a free class you can take online that the state put out, but you can do it in about 8 minutes by watching the videos on 2 times and then just answering the questions. And what have you really learned? There's some hands-on stuff, but throughput on that is tricky. And then you do see police agencies, they'll have a motor sergeant or somebody who's familiar with highway safety on 2 wheels come out and maybe do a Saturday class, but it's hard to get a lot of volume there. So with our e-bike course, we not only put together really great content, we used all 50 years of our experience developing this course. It's very focused on judgment, very focused on behavior. We also have in there kind of a teen contract for safety type of thing, 10 things to know before you get on your e-bike, guided conversations that parents can have with their teenagers, things like that. And on the other side, we have it set up so that when the student completes the course, they can send a PDF of their completion certificate straight from the class to their parents, to their guidance counselor, to the principal, to the local police department, whoever they need to prove that they've completed this course. Then they can come back and take it a few months later for a few bucks. They can take it again every year. And then on the administrative side of that, we built it out so that, say, a school district implements this, they can go in and look at how many of the students in their school district by the student assigning their school district when they register by first name, last name, email address have completed the class. Or they can go in and just buy a bunch of classes, assign them to the kids, and then monitor their progress and their completion through that. Maybe it's each semester, maybe it's each school year. So we built this. The content is super rich. It's really thoughtful. It's geared towards this emerging market and the demographic you see in there, these teenagers, preteens. But we built a lot of administrative tools into it so that a school district, a police department, a municipality can implement this right away and have all the tools they need to monitor the students' completion, monitor the students through the course, and then send out reminders to take the class again. So that's a way that the Motorcycle Safety Foundations, and obviously with our member companies, seeing that this is powered 2 wheels, we kind of looked at it as, if not MSF, who? We're subject matter experts on staying safe on powered 2 wheels. We've been doing this for over 50 years. So the way I put it to a few people is let's pass down some of our ancient wisdom here and let's welcome these kids to our tribe by helping them get into riding on the street the right way, and then also get them into our community. So maybe they get a little older, they're thinking about a motorcycle because they've had such a good time on an e-bike that they say, oh, wait, MSF, I know them. That's where I took my class for my e-bike. I'm going to go sign up for an MSF course. So now we've got them interested in getting into motorcycling the right way through a class where they're going to learn the importance of motorcycle safety, gear, things like that, that next step up from an e-bike. So that's been a big one for us. We've been really pushing that hard over the last year. We have big plans this year to go to a lot of events where you're going to have, conferences of governor's offices, a lot of police agencies, things like that, and make sure they're aware of it, because we're starting to see more and more local legislation requiring training. We have a turnkey solution for that, and we really believe in it. So stay tuned. You're going to hear more about that.
I like that. And how many people would you say, you mentioned 250 to 300,000 students a year. What percentage of that would be involved in the e-bike course that you were just talking about?
We're seeing it pick up every month. We get more and more and more. I'd love to see it be the same. There's millions of those things being sold.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a few 100,000 kids a year learn where to be on the right place on the road. I've got 2 teenagers myself. This is near and dear to me. And so, let's put it out there. It sounds corny, but if it saves one life, we've done our job. And so we want every parent, we want every school, we want every police department, every municipality to know that our course is there, it's available to them, and we want these kids in there.
That's great. That's great. You mentioned earlier also working with local law enforcement. You mentioned the governor's office and other, legislation. How much does the MSF work with creating law or helping to write certain regulations on the motorcycle industry itself?
Often where MSF will get involved is, in most states, you've got a case where a few bucks from the motorcycle registration and or a few bucks from the motorcycle license go to fund the rider education program. So that's motorcyclists' dollars to benefit motorcyclists. Sometimes you'll see somebody go, hey, look at that pot of money over there. Let's use that for, counting clouds. And it's like, nope, that's not what it's for. So we will step in and help preserve those funds and usually partner with a local state, an SMRO and help them preserve those funds. Other cases where there may be licensing issues that just could be overburdensome, things like that, we'll work to refine the language so that it kind of follows some logic instead of just being overly burdensome, things like that. And then we've had a few cases where we've partnered just to keep a rider education program current and alive in a state program. I mean, maybe somebody doesn't see the value in it because there's only 1,500 people in a small state going through it, but those 1,500 people need that. It needs to exist. It needs to be there, and the state needs to honor their commitment to those riders. So that's really where the MSF comes into government relations. And then staff-wise, we have a relationship with almost every DMV in the country, which I think I mentioned to you is probably the most glamorous part of the entire motorcycle industry that we do every day. But we work closely with them to make sure they have the tools and information they need so that their rider ed program can best serve the riders who are funding it, who need it. And then how can we just take the best practices? We administer 4 state programs, New Mexico, West Virginia, New York, and Colorado, under contract with the state agencies. And so we will take the lessons we learn from that, the best practices from that, and then we turn around and we offer that knowledge and that information as kind of a help desk to every other state program and every other training provider in the country for a phone call or an email, because we want those programs to be the best they can be and best serve the riders. So we want to be that resource for anybody who's interested in motorcycle safety.
That's great, man. That's great. You guys are doing a lot of the Lord's work here and trying to get these new riders, experienced riders, just up to speed. It supports the whole engine that is the power sports industry. Let me ask you this. If MSF and the dealerships were perfectly aligned over the next 3 to 5 years, what would success look like for that particular dealer in terms of rider growth, dealership sales and health, right? They're selling gear, they're selling parts, they're getting service out of it, or just maybe the industry as a whole?
I think no small part of it would be having newer bikes on the training ranges. We have ranges where the bikes are 10, 12 years old. I'm sure you can imagine the condition there. So having dealerships involved with helping support the training provider, not just with equipment, newer equipment, things like that. We need helmets. We always need helmets. We need gloves. We need a few pair of boots for the people who forget and wear sneakers to the class. We need good training bikes. We need them well maintained. And we need for the training providers to know who the local dealerships are, who the local retailers are, so they can send people to them if they have questions about bikes and things like that. The rider coaches are not there to sell a motorcycle. They're there to teach these people how to stay safe on a motorcycle. And so having that handoff, so the dealership supporting them with equipment, sending curious people to them, and then having the Motorcycle Safety Foundation training site, once they've trained these people and they're up and they've got some more questions about specific things about bikes and gear and things like that, having a couple of places in town where they know they can send them and they're going to be well received. They're going to get good service. They're going to walk in and the parts people are going to say, hey, how you doing today? What can I do for you? And things like that. So it just comes to that customer service both ways, I think is really important. And then know what MSF is and who we are. Hop on our website, msf-usa.org. There's a lot of content there. We've got a great communications team. They're always updating things. Find out about our ride day. When's a ride day near you? Go hit up that local site that's going to offer it. Say, hey, what can we do to support this? Can we get out here with some helmets and let people try on helmets? Can we bring out a few bikes for people to look at? Don't try and turn it into a sales opportunity. Turn it into a opening the relationship opportunity.
It's truly a mutually beneficial relationship here. I love the point about maybe supplying a couple bikes or helping with the training fleet, or even maybe providing some gear or parts to help upfit these beat up bikes that you're talking about. And in turn, obviously the rider coaches will be an advocate for that dealership that does that. And you got to have some other things in place too, maybe some business cards there or some flyers or something like that. But on the dealership side of things, this was always something that kind of stuck in the back of my mind. I think some dealers worry that emphasizing safety could possibly scare buyers away, especially if you've got somebody right now who's like, I want to pull the trigger. From MSF's perspective, how can dealerships use that safety education to actually increase that trust and confidence and the closing rates?
Yeah, I understand completely what you're saying. And if I was a salesperson, and you've got them close, it's a hard ask for them to say, well, wait a minute, do you know how to ride? Can you get on this bike, or have you taken a class? So maybe introduce that early in the conversations. How long have you been riding? Have you taken an MSF course? There's one right down the street. How long ago did you take an MSF course? Things like that. Or as you mentioned earlier, maybe bundle it with the sale. Say, all right, we've got this bike here. We've got a relationship with the school right down the street. We got you signed up for a class. We'll get it there for you. A lot of ways you can kind of package that together. We run into that on the ATV side too, where it's very important that people take the ATV Safety Institute course, but the salespeople are cautious about asking for the information to get, for us to go to them at ATV Safety Institute and try and get them into a class. Same kind of thing here. Look at it as an investment in that customer so that they can have a longer, safer riding career and become a repeat customer.
That's great. That's great. I also did a little research on your history here. You were at one time leading the California Motorcyclist Safety Program, and it says that you had helped train over 600,000 riders. Is that right?
Yeah, we administered the California Motorcyclist Safety Program from 2004 through the end of 2014 under contract with the California Highway Patrol. And during that time, we took the program from an average of about 43,000 students a year to over 60,000 students a year. And in 2008, we had over 70,000 students that year. So as part of a really awesome team of people, many of them that I'm still working with closely at the MSF, we did everything we could to make rider education in California as readily available as possible. We took the wait time from 90 days down to 3 weeks at peak season. And that's an example of where we took what we learned from that and we've applied it to the other states that we administer under contract. And we try and help all other states reach that, because people will not wait for training. That bike's sitting in the garage, they're going to ride it. So they're not going to wait a month. They need days or weeks to get into a class. So that was one of the things we really worked on there is the quality of the training, the availability of the training, the quality of the rider coach, the professional development. We did a lot of professional development, and we're really proud of our track record there for the 11 years that we ran that program.
You should be, man. That's quite a monumental task. What kind of patterns did you see in who actually went on from beginner rider to becoming a long-term rider and motorcycle owner, of course?
We saw, it's hard to put a string between, training and sales, things like that. We kind of looked at, number of registered motorcycles, number of licensed motorcyclists. It's kind of tricky. California is a huge state, and you're talking millions of riders. The data is really big, but we did see a lot of those people go on to, get licensed, things like that. The quantity of licensed riders went up incrementally over that 11-year period. Last couple of years, haven't necessarily seen that. We're looking at some other opportunities in California to bring MSF training back into the state, make it more readily available, do ride days in the state, things like that, because we want to make sure, back to capacity and availability, we want to make sure people can get the best possible training as quickly as possible. So we're working on that, because while the population of the state's remaining kind of flat currently, there's still a lot of people riding. I live, North County, San Diego. I see motorcycles every time I leave my house, and it bugs me to think that maybe they're not getting the rider education they need.
I love it. I love it. Well, Robert, just as a last question here, I always like to ask insiders and industry people just a general statement about the industry, right? We've seen a lot of shifts in terms of demand. We've seen writers come and go. We're obviously trying to grow it every single year to more and more people coming into the industry, but we have almost an equal amount leaving the industry for whatever reason. Where do you see the industry going as a whole in the next 10, 20, 30 years?
Well, I think we need to make sure that we're approachable and accessible. It's not a party unless every single person's invited. And so let's make sure that every one of us as a rider is being a good ambassador to motorcycling. If a kid's near your bike and they want to look at it, talk to them about the bike. If they want to try your helmet on, let them try your helmet on. Be an ambassador, plant that seed with them. And then I'm going to be a little selfish here and tell them to take an MSF class as the first step there. But I think if you look at the population that's riding, we've got some room to go demographically in a couple of areas. I think our friends at the Motorcycle Industry Council are doing a phenomenal job out there on a couple of fronts. One is with the Ride With Us program, where they're going out to people where they are and giving them that first taste of motorcycling, similar to our ride day. And then if you look at what the MIC's Government Relations Office does, they do phenomenal work on land use issues, for example, keeping riding areas available, because how many people that in this industry started off on a trail bike off-road? And if those opportunities aren't there, we're in trouble. And so the whole industry, everybody in this industry should be supporting the MIC because the work they do in government relations, in outreach and promotion to demographic groups that maybe we don't have a lot of right now is very valuable. And especially at the dealership level, it's pretty economical to support that machine. And that machine supports the whole industry. When COVID hit, it was the MIC's Government Relations Office that got dealerships declared an essential business and got them open back up. That's just one huge example of the work they do to serve us every day. They work on that part of the industry. MSF works on the riders and the people coming into it. So we kind of talk about the top half of the equation of the rider and the bike. MSF will take care of the top part, the human element. The industry, the Motorcycle Industry Council, is doing a great job with the lower part, the machine and the culture and the community.
Super important organization. And yeah, where would we be if that COVID closure did not deem us an essential business? We'd probably shrivel up and die from them. You mentioned demographically, there are still maybe some points that you wanted to hit on. What particularly are you talking about when you want to try to attract certain demographics into the sport?
So in our ride day data, when we get these people who come in for that first taste, we're seeing almost half are female, and we're seeing a lot of them under 35. So is that what dealerships are seeing? Half female and a lot of them under 35? I'm not sure that's necessarily the case. So if men and women are half of the country, why shouldn't it be half men riders and half women riders out there?
Yeah.
Look at me. I'm not a spring chicken here, but I've been riding my whole life. So how can we get younger people involved? It's something that both on the rider coach side and on riding, how can we get people involved? I'm encouraged when I see people in my area on smaller displacement bikes, younger people, things like that, getting a good start that way. So it's instead of the guys riding, could it be the guys and the gals out there riding together? Things like that. So how do we get more people in? Our ride days and our classes are a great entry point. We've seen that over time, but I know that the percentage of women in an MSF course nationally is not half. How can the industry get it to half?
I think that's super interesting. Half are female and under 35. I would argue that it's traditionally have been a male-dominated industry, not only the customer base, but also the people who work in it, right? Just walk around AIM, most of the people that you're walking past, are male, right? And they're working as vendors, they're working as dealers, suppliers, OEMs. And so that's great to see that on at least your side, the people who are going through these training courses are female and they are of the younger demographic under 35. Any other interesting demographics that you're seeing on your side?
No, that's I'm kind of looking at the bigger picture, just like, how can we get more people, under our tent and that type of thing. And to your point there, it's, we need rider coaches. Every training program in the country needs rider coaches, and male, female, all ages. You do need to be pretty nimble on your feet, and you got to have some time on the weekends, and you got to be able to talk to anybody about anything, anytime out there on the range. But we need rider coaches. And so if there's anybody out there who's interested in becoming a rider coach, we have information on our website about that. As far as the industry, I'm encouraged by what I see, because when I started 35 years ago and you went to the Cincinnati show, it was a dude ranch. I'm encouraged by what I see in this industry as far as people who are helping steer the industry. And I think our president and CEO, Christy LaCroix, is a good example of that. A lot of fresh ideas, really high energy. We're all running to keep up with her and her ideas. But when I go around and I see people who've been in this industry for a long time, who maybe started off in ad sales, things like that, and they're in leadership roles in our industry. If you look at Cinnamon Kearns, who she is AIM Expo, her and Andre, they make it happen. These are people who represent a demographic that should be half of the industry and half of all riders. And they're making real big strides, and they're making big decisions that are affecting all of us. And we're all benefiting from their knowledge, their experience, and their leadership. So let's lean into this.
I think that's a perfect way to end the segment. Well, his name is Robert. He is the VP of Training Operations for the MSF. That's the Motorcycle Safety Foundation. Robert, how can people get a hold of you?
Easy way to go is through the MSF website, msf-usa.org, or you can shoot me an email at rgladden, which is RGLADDEN at msf-usa.org. I've had that email address for almost 25 years, so Google it, you'll find me.
We'll make sure it's in the show notes too, in case anybody needs to reach out.
Appreciate that.
All right, everybody. Well, I appreciate you, Robert, coming on. Very insightful guy. I had a fun time talking with you during the AIM Expo, and obviously on this podcast here. Wealth of knowledge. I think everybody should support their local MSF. If you're not, Robert's got some good tips on how to do that. Reach out to him if you need some more information there. But on that note, we'll say bye, everybody.
Dealers, get ready to accelerate your sales with Moto Hunt Marketplace. For a limited time, we're offering a free trial to power sports and motorcycle dealers to showcase your inventory where it matters most. Moto Hunt isn't just a platform. With our unparalleled Google-esque search technology, your listings climb to the top of page results, capturing the attention of motivated buyers without the need for a bidding war. We'll send direct, qualified leads straight to your CRM or inbox. Get more visibility on your in-stock units, and convert more sales is what Moto Hunt Marketplace offers. Your inventory deserves the spotlight, and with Moto Hunt, that's exactly where it'll be. Sign up today for free. Visit dealers.motohunt.com/free. That's dealers.motohunt.com/free. That's FREE to claim your free trial today.